لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا.
الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده ولا أمة بعد أمته ولا كتاب بعد كتابه ولا شريعة بعد شريعته. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. صدق الله العظيم. Respected viewers, we welcome you back once again to our program, The Perfect Example, where we look at the life of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, draw inspiration and be motivated with the intention of emulating and putting into practice the Mubarak example and the lessons and inspiration that was left behind for us by our beloved Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In our last program, we looked upon the aftermath of the Battle of Badr, especially on the side of the Quraysh. And then we looked upon the nikah of Hazrat Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha to Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And we had given some details with regard to that nikah. After this, understand that while this is happening, the Quraysh are still feeling very bitter over what had happened and transpired in the Battle of Badr. And in this particular way, Abu Sufyan takes an oath. I will not be intimate with my wife. I will not take a shower. I will not bath until in some way I avenge what had happened in Badr. Now it's easy to make that particular type of oath, that how does he get away with it? And he had proclaimed it publicly, so he was duty bound to do something. So he comes to this particular conclusion that he comes one day with a group of horsemen from Makkah Mukarramah, and he comes to the outskirts of Medina, and he stealthily comes upon some of the Muslims who were grazing their animals and involved in agriculture, kills one or two of them, and then flees away and comes away from Medina Munawwara. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is made aware of it, and Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam rushes and goes out in pursuit of Abu Sufyan. Now, because of the fact that they had brought sawiq. Sawiq means crushed wheat which was covered with ghee. And because of the fact that they were pursued and they were fleeing the Muslims, they just let that which they had brought for their provisions and eating, they just dropped it to flee away from the Muslims. Therefore, this is known as the expedition of sawiq, crushed wheat which was covered in ghee. This also shows the intensity of the campaign. Now the people of Makkah are still trying their utmost to continue the hostility. Despite the fact that they had been defeated in Badr, they are all the time putting their thoughts together to avenge what had happened in the Battle of Badr. In the meanwhile, our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam comes to know of a campaign by the Banu Sa'lama and the Banu Maharib, subdivisions of the Bani Ghatfan. And Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sends an expedition. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is also part of that. And then when Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam returns, because by the time Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam comes there, those subdivisions of Ghatfan, one of the major tribes near Najd, right? And they saw Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam coming, and they hid away, and they took protection in the mountains, etc., without coming to confront our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam comes back after a while in this whole particular expedition, there is a major rain that takes place. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Sahaba are drenched. And Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam takes refuge under a tree, and a famous incident takes place. Many of you might have heard it, but here is the context behind it. And there is a person by the name of Dasur Ghatfani, one of the influential people of the Ghatfani tribe, saw Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam cut away from the enemy, and Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was taking a rest after keeping and being drenched in the rain and keeping his clothes to get dry and having minimal type of clothes, and he was resting when the Sur Ghaffani comes with his sword and he feels that here is a time for me to complete this act and to try and kill and assassinate Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he comes with his sword, and while Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was sleeping, he places his sword on the body of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and said, who may yamna'uka minni? Who is going to save you from me? You are now under my control. You are sleeping, you are resting. I got my sword, the tip of my sword over your body. And Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Allah will save me. And Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said it with such force and with such yaqeen and with such certainty of faith that the surah started trembling, and the sword that he held over Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam fell out of his hand, and Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam grabbed that sword, and Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam now had him under control and said, "May yamna'uka minni? Who is going to save you now from me? My Allah saved me." And he said, "Oh Muhammad, have mercy upon me, have compassion upon me." This was the compassion of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, a person who had come to assassinate the Nabi of Almighty Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. Our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam allows him to go by and does not do anything to him. When he is coming back, the people of the tribe said, "You had an opportunity to assassinate Muhammad. Why didn't you do so?" He said, "I can't explain it. There was an awe that overtook me when I tried to do something harmful to the beloved of Almighty Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala." This was Allah Ta'ala's protection. And wallahi, my dear respected viewers, if we follow the Sunnah of Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if we follow the teachings, Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala will inshallah also protect us in a similar manner. And this is a great lesson. And then of course there's also certain things that happen. One of the things that happened at that time is Ka'b bin Ashraf. Ka'b bin Ashraf, influential person of the Jewish community of Medina Munawwara. Bear in mind that there is a treaty known as the Mithaq Medina, which says that the inhabitants of Medina would protect Medina collectively, irrespective of your religious or your ethnic background. There is a treaty that you are the citizens of the city, and as citizen of the city you cannot harm the city. You would not do something that is harmful to the city, and you would not do something that goes against the peace and the harmony of the city. Ka'b bin Ashraf goes against that. And what does Ka'b bin Ashraf do? He, with 40 prominent people, goes to Makkah Mukarramah, goes and incite the people of Makkah and said that what happened in Badr was an abnormality. Don't worry about it. It will be changed. And if you people remain steadfast, I will get the funding. I will get the help. You have to make another attack to Medina. Now just keep in mind, a citizen of Medina going to another place and inciting the people to go and attack his own city, to go and attack his own people, despite the fact that there is a treaty in place that all the citizens of the city would together live in peace, live in harmony, and they would not do something that would disturb this peace and harmony. How much emphasis Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam placed upon peace and harmony in your respective places of residence. Today we don't have this in many parts of the world, even in our own country. And it is a great ni'mat of Almighty Allah Ta'ala to have this situation of peace and harmony in your own residence. Nevertheless, our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam comes to know that Ka'b bin Ashraf has done such a great act of treachery. In reality, it was treason that someone goes from your city, goes and incite other people to come and attack the city. And he gets the people of Makkah under the Haram and the Kaaba and the Baytullah, and he takes an oath from them that you will continue your attack against Islam and the Muslims. So Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is extremely disturbed by this. Ka'b bin Ashraf, in the meanwhile, is also the person who had composed poetry against Islam, the Muslims, and against the honor and the modesty of the Muslim woman. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is very greatly perturbed. Muhammad ibn Maslama, he comes to know about Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's disturbance, and Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's being hurt by the treachery and deceit of Ka'b bin Ashraf. And Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it could be seen that he was hurt by this deceit. And Muhammad ibn Maslama said, "Ya Rasulullah, allow me to go and kill this person who has caused such great deceit and treason to the people and inhabitants of Medina." That was, and up till now remains, the standard that treachery And the consequence of treachery is death and execution. And Muhammad ibn Maslama goes and he takes the permission of Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam permits him. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, I will go and I will say certain things as part of my major objective. Would you allow me to do so? And Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam allows him. And then when he goes to Ka'b bin Ashraf, and he finds that Ka'b bin Ashraf had just been newly married. He lures him out of his house and then complains about Muslims. And Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam takes Ka'b bin Ashraf into confidence, and he executes Ka'b because of the fact that Ka'b had acted treacherously and he was guilty of treason against the peace and harmony of Medina Munawwara. And this was something that Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was aware of. Nevertheless, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is aware with regard to this, and Ka'b bin Ashraf, who had done this great act of treachery, is removed from the scene because his action could have led to even greater disharmony in Medina Munawwara. And we will continue with this program after the break. Respected viewers, welcome back once again to our program. Just before the break, we were speaking about various incidents that happened after the Battle of Badr. Including them were the expedition of Sawiq. We gave the reason why it was known as such. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam advancing to Ghatfan when he came to know that they were planning to attack Medina Munawwara. And of course the aspect of Ka'b bin Ashraf, who had gone outside Medina against the agreement to incite the people of Makkah to attack Medina Munawwara and to attack Islam and the Muslims and our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In the meanwhile, the Quraysh had put all their resources together to avenge the Battle of Badr. We know that the Battle of Badr started off in terms of the trade caravan. The trade caravan managed to save itself from the clutches of the Muslims, and they came back to Makkah Mukarramah. And the leadership of the people of Makkah, the Quraysh, including Abu Sufyan bin Harb, Abdullah bin Abi Rabi'ah, Ikramah bin Abi Jahl, Haris bin Hisham, Huwaytib bin Abdul Uzza, Safwan bin Umayyah, they goaded and encouraged the people of Makkah that whatever proceeds and whatever profit has been made must be put into the joint kitty to be able to attack Islam and the Muslim to avenge the Battle of Badr. And they all put their proceeds together, and they all put the profit together. Some ulama have also gone on to say that there were 50,000 gold coins that were put together now to avenge the Battle of Badr. And immediately after Ramadan, in that Ramadan of 3rd year after Hijri, Hazrat Fatima radiallahu ta'ala gives birth to Hazrat Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Bear in mind that Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala and Hazrat Fatima radiallahu ta'ala's nikah was immediately after the Battle of Badr. Battle of Badr took place in the 2nd year after Hijri in Ramadan. Almost in Shawwal thereafter, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gets Hazrat Fatima radiallahu ta'ala gets married just immediately after Ramadan, more or less. And then in the Ramadan of 3rd year after Hijri, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's daughter gives birth to Hazrat Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, a person who was to occupy a very high rank amongst the companions. Immediately thereafter in Shawwal, the people of Makkah, they jointly come and attack Medina Munawwara. Abbas radiallahu anhu had written a letter, but before the letter could come to our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the army of the people of Makkah were on the outskirts and just outside Medina Munawwara. And the Quraysh, had dispatched messengers to various tribes to put forward their menfolk and their resources to be able to partake in this battle, to be able to annihilate the Islam and Muslims. And they had 3,000 people, including 700 well-armed warriors. They had 200 horses, 3,000 camels, and even women accompanied the people of Makkah to inspire and motivate them and to taunt them if they leave the battlefield. And of course, foremost among them was Hind, the wife of Abu Sufyan, the leader of the Quraysh at that time, who later on becomes a Muslim. Nevertheless, they come in with this great force. Now just keep in mind they had 200 horses. Comparative to when the battle took place, Muslims had 2 horses. Nevertheless, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees and comes to hear that they are on the outskirts of Medina Munawwara. It was a Thursday evening. Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes and rests on that particular night. He is surrounded and he is protected by Sa'd bin Mu'adh, Usayd bin Hudayr, and Sa'd bin Ubadah radiallahu anhu, who protect Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Given the fact that there is an army on the outskirts of Medina, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees 2 dreams. One dream is that Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees that he is in an impregnable armor, and nearby a cow is slaughtered. Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam interprets this dream to say that if we remain in Medina Munawwara, we will be impregnable. We will not be able to be defeated, because the terrain of Medina is a very difficult terrain for people to pierce, and they would not be able to do so if we remain in Medina Munawwara. And the fact that there is a cow that is slaughtered also indicates to the fact that there were certain Sahaba who were going to be martyred in this battle. That was the interpretation of the dream. Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam also sees a dream that Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam has a sword, and while engaging the sword, the tip of the sword breaks. And after the tip of the sword breaks, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam then waves the sword several times until the sword is restored to even a better form than what it was previously. The interpretation was that while there would be many Sahaba who would be martyred in this coming battle, the result and the consequences would be good, because the Muslims would regroup. So this was the aspect, that the tip of the sword was broken and then again it was restored to its former glory. Then Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the next morning, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam calls the Sahaba Ikram and asks them that, give us your opinion, how do we deal with the situation? We have a full-fledged army. We don't have the necessary resources to match them in terms of any way, in terms of equipment, in terms of armor, in terms of people. What do we do? The senior Sahaba, including Abdullah bin Ubay, the leader of the Munafiqs, but someone who was also well experienced with regard to the terrain of Medina. And he tells Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, O Muhammad, remain in Medina Munawwara. Medina Munawwara, the terrain is such, there are certain natural fortifications. There is mountains, there is date groves, there is slide, there is different type of situation. So if you remain in Medina, you will force them to come into Medina. After all, they came with a great army of 3,000. They are not going to remain in there. So they are going to come and attack you. When they come and attack you, you will have the protection of natural fortifications. And when you have those natural fortifications, if they do come through those fortifications, we would be at hand to put paid to them. We would be at hand to kill them. And we would be at hand to take them to task if they go through those particular natural fortifications. And even the woman would be able to throw them with hot oil. That was a method of warfare at that particular time. So this was the initial stages, and Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam was inclined towards this view, because it was said by the senior Sahaba, and perhaps it seemed to have been, from the warfare point of view, something that was tangible, something that was possible, something that made sense and logic. However, there was another group on the younger Sahaba, and then the younger Sahaba started standing up and said, Ya Rasulullah, are you going to allow us to remain in Medina as cowards? While the army is there, must we remain as cowards, fortified, as if we are afraid of them? We are not afraid of them. Even if we are lesser in resources, but Allah has given us Iman, Allah has given us strength, we will fight till the end of our life. If Allah Ta'ala grant us victory, Alhamdulillah. If not, we would achieve martyrdom. So in both ways, Ya Rasulullah, there is benefit for us. It is said that it is Hazrat Hamza radiallahu ta'ala, Sa'd bin Ubadah, Nu'man bin Malik, who championed this cause the most. Hazrat Hamza radiallahu ta'ala said, I swear by the being who has revealed this book, the Quran, I will not eat until I have engaged the army outside Medina, not inside Medina, because it will be a slight upon my courage for me to remain in Medina and face them. And then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam listens. Nu'man bin Malik Ansari radiallahu anhu said, Ya Rasulullah, do not deprive us of Jannah. Do not deprive us of Jannah. We want to go and fight, irrespective of what happens. And فَوَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ لَأَدْخُلَنَّ الْجَنَّةِ. By the being who has sent you as a true prophet of Almighty Allah, we want to enter into Jannah. We want to enter into the paradise. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, on what basis do you want to be entered into paradise? He said, on the basis that I bear witness and testimony that there is no deity besides Allah, and you are the Rasul of Almighty Allah, and I will not turn my back in the battlefield. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, you have spoken the truth. Now Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is faced the senior Sahaba, and Abdullah bin Ubay, the leader of the Munafiq, but an influential person nonetheless, is giving this view that no, we should remain in Medina Munawwara. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam sees the enthusiasm of the younger Sahaba. And then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam inclination, after being initially towards remaining in Medina Munawwara, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's inclination now turns towards, let us go and confront them outside Medina Munawwara. One remarkable aspect with regard to this incident is that although Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was receiving wahi from Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was the one who was receiving wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the highest of knowledge, yet Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam made mashwara with the ashab and the companions, because through the means of mashwara, people feel part of the decision. Through the means of mashwara, the situation of making a mistake is lessened. Through the means of mashwara, you bring the barakat of Almighty Allah. You get people together in the decision. And this was the sunnah of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Therefore it is said, فَإِذَا وَشَاوِرُهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Allah Ta'ala commanded the Nabi of Almighty Allah, consult with the companions in your matters. فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ. When you reach a decision, then put your trust and rely upon Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah has made mashwara and consultation a means of rahmat for this ummah. Hassan Basri rahmatullah alayhi says that through the means of this ayat, although Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not in need of mashwara, because of the fact that he was receiving wahi from Almighty Allah, he was guided and inspired by Allah, but yet Allah Ta'ala told him to consult people. The reason is that Allah wanted to make this the sunnah of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam makes the decision to go and confront the people of Quraysh, the army outside Medina Munawwara. And then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes into his house, and when he comes out, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam has double armor that he has upon his body. Subhanallah, what is at sight? The Nabi of Allah did not hesitate or shirk from his responsibility to protect Islam and to protect the Muslims and to protect the citizen of Medina. And inshallah, in our next program, we will look upon the various aspects leading to the battle of Uhud and the battle itself. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a tawfiq of understanding and drawing inspiration and lessons and emulating our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وآخر دعوانا عن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا.